Hey, it's Chris from Legion Games. This is a big week on Kickstarter. If you're not familiar with it, here you go. We got Darkest Dungeon, we got Townsfolk Tussle, we got Freedom 5. If you're not familiar with these, you need to go check them out. This video is going to do that and more. So, if you want to get a good Kickstarter roundup before anyone else, here we go. We got stuff that's beginning, we got stuff that's ending, we got a little value thrown in. Let's take a look. We have had several big launches, though, today. And the first of these that I'm going to talk about is Townsfolk Tussle. And so if you're ever familiar with like the pre-Mickey Mouse cartoonish era, this is sort of taken that to the extreme, and this is the style of art that they are using. Now, what is this game? This is a co-op boss battling game. To the nearest comparison that they have is they've basically taken the Kingdom Death Monster battles and then just isolated them. As you can see, it's already on day one. It's already over its funding goal, almost by twice the amount. It's got 1,600 people. It's going to be going for a month. So what is the big attraction for this? One, it's co-op. Two, it's boss battling. And if there's anything about Kingdom Death Monster that people like, it is the boss battles in terms of the strategy that you have to take, the difference between one battle and the next battle, and the different powers and abilities that you can use in this. And this takes that and wants to focus on it, and they just do ridiculous things with the weapons and the powers and all sorts of that, and you get to play as several different characters. Basically, all you are is the sheriff has been murdered, there's these bad guys coming in, and you have to defend it. And so it's 2 to 5 players, 40 minutes per player. That's probably a lot because I think you're actually doing several boss battles in each game. I think you're doing 4. I think the artwork is going to be very hit or miss for people. Personally, again, the miniatures are okay. I am happy with colored standees at a lower pledge level. I know I am in the minority, but I think it's always worth stating so that because I know somebody else out there is saying, yes, 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 Chris, yes, I agree with you. Otherwise, miniatures are miniatures. Look, like I said, the art is different. Now, I'm not sure if I would use charmingly as the adjective in this because I think it's very divisive, and I think you're going to have a lot of people that like the concept, but there's a lot of people out there that will automatically not back a project based on the artwork alone, which I think means you're going to miss out on things, but I think it's also a valid opinion. Now, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be shopping for items, fighting bad guys, getting rewards, shopping, fighting another bad guy, rinse and repeat. And so the last guy, it becomes the sheriff, and he gets a special ability, and if you can beat the last guy, you win. And there's a lot of just, I mean, you can see Rickety Farm, 1,000 Pecks, they've gone with full bore with the theme, so they're not half-assing it. They're going straight into everything and embracing it. So I give them props for that. This is going to be a whole separate video that I'm going to break down, but already I can see that there's going to be a little bit of a divide, and I think you've had a little bit of turnoff because as you can see, the $85 pledge is where the majority of people are at this point. But unfortunately, there was, and they didn't announce a time necessarily, and there was a $70 pledge. Now, CMON takes a lot of crap for this, for their $5 difference. This is 15 bucks. This is shipping. So that's significant, and I think that's going to be interesting to see how they address that in the future. Or if they say much about it at all. Again, I'm not a huge art person in this game. That being said, I'm more concerned about the gameplay, and the gameplay from what's out there looks good. Now, the question always is with all of these guys, are you going to have enough variability? And with 10 ruffians, and you're fighting 4 every time, I'm hoping that we have some stretch goals that are actually going to do that. Now, the nice thing is they've heard people like me and they're doing standees. So I'll address that in another issue. They've got new ruffians going already. They're doing stretch goals. So I think that the price point is going to be good depending on how many stretch goals they get if they don't space them out too much. So I'm going to cover this in a whole separate video probably a week or 2 from now so that we can get more of a true look at the depth of this game, more insight into it from that side of things. So now we have the biggest one launching today. We have Darkest Dungeon, the board game. Another IP that is very well known outside of the board game world that received its first accolades as a video game. Now you've got it raising. It's under 2 hours into the campaign. It's almost at $500,000. So let's take a look at it really quickly. It's by Mythic. And so if you know Mythic, they've got a track record that is not the most favorable recently, but they've been trying to revamp things. They've gone with 2 pledge levels, 150 and 100. Right now I'm pledging for the 150 just to see and get the updates. Honestly, that's a big price point, and I'm kind of concerned about it being that way because if you go down on the Kickstarter page, there is a lot of plastic in this campaign. And having watched a partial playthrough already, I'm not convinced on the gameplay. I'm going to be doing a full video about this maybe a week or two from now, so you can get a more of a detailed look, especially with the stretch goals and whatever else they throw in, because you know they're going to throw in expansions. I don't know about this. This is a dungeon crawler. You inherit this mansion. You are going to be diving through it. It's breaking into 2 phases. The first phase is exploring the dungeon. The second phase is battling. I just don't know. I mean, it looks like they've gone with plastic first, and I'm not sure about the gameplay. There's just a ton of plastic here, and they're throwing the plastic all in front of you. Now, what are you getting with the higher level pledge? You're getting the expansion, and the thing I don't like seeing about this already is you're seeing that they're throwing stretch goals in with the expansion. So I'm not sure if they're going to be separating them out. Like, this stretch goal is only for the expansion, which means that you are going to be almost forced to get the higher pledge level. I'm not sure what they're going to do about retailability in that sense. I just don't know at this point whether or not it's going to be worth it. I think it's too early to tell. I want to see how this differs from other dungeon crawlers that are out there, because this is a big price point. I'm comparing it to Cthulhu Death May Die initially because of the variety that came with that whole pledge at 150 or 100 bucks. What this has versus what makes it unique versus a lot of the other products that are out there. So I will definitely be revisiting this as time goes on. Mythic has to show us that they're going to put a product out there that warrants this kind of money, and I'm not sure that they have yet. So it'll be interesting to see how this next 17 days unveils stretch goals, more content, just something to grip me, because right now on the get-go, I'm not as gripped as I thought I would be. Next up of the big launches, I'm actually probably most excited about this one, having watched part of a gameplay playthrough by Mr. Grogan. This is Sentinels of the Multiverse, taken and packaged, rethemed. I believe it is Defenders of the Realm. And so I'm a little surprised it's only at 100,000 right now, even though it launched earlier this morning. You've got the Saddlers involved. They're already marketing it big on the front page as a Dice Towers Essential game. It has exclusive cosmetic upgrades. So I like the fact that the only exclusives are cosmetics, because if you're like me, ignore the cosmetics already. The price point for the higher level is 100 bucks, which I'm pledging right now. I like that. I like that. I don't think anything beyond that is necessary. I don't want to be an NPC in this game, so this does nothing for me at the $500 level. This is a co-op. Defenders of the Realm, you're protecting the city against various villains. There's a couple minor bad guys, there's one big bad, and then you've got this big map that you're sort of going around and clearing things out, and you've got powers. And the main reason you're either going to be all in on this or you're going to avoid it is that there's a lot of dice, and there seems to be some dice mitigation with powers and cards. It's also taken the Marvel Champion idea of having a hero on one side of the card and then their alter ego on the other side of the card, and different abilities and different reactions that will happen based on what side of the card that you are on as the hero. So I think that that's really intriguing. I'm interested to see how much variability can go with that. This is what I initially wish Sentinels of the Multiverse was first time around. I'm also going to be putting out a full video on this in a week or two so that we can see more of the stretch goals. Again, with this, I hope they don't space the stretch goals out too far, because you can already see it slowing down at 100,000. So, I want to see what happens with this. There appears to be less alpha gaming, that you're going to be too busy managing your own character to alpha game everyone else. So I like that fact that I've already seen. And I just hope they show us something that they didn't show us with the original Sentinels of the Multiverse in terms of characters. Just on surface glance, there appears to be a lot of the same, and I understand that it's the same IP, but give me something new in that regard too. Surprise me. I'm a little concerned that I don't see any expansions already, so that they might be holding those back. So that would be my other question, is what are we going to see in the end from that side of things, and is this $100 price point going to be more like $200 or more, depending on what else they throw along with this. The last big one that I have not covered, that again I think dedicates itself to its own video, is Veiled Fate. I mentioned this previously in one of my preview videos of ones that I was super excited about, that I thought was going to fly under the radar and surprise a lot of people, and this is the one. This is a 2 to 8 player game. It's strategic, it's deduction, it's powers, it's asymmetry. I love what I'm seeing already. It's already almost at $500,000. It's almost at 5,000 backers, and it's not a super long campaign. I liked that they stayed simplistic and minimalistic with it, and that they didn't overdo it and try and overcomplicate it. I think the color scheme is matching what it needs to do. So basically in this game, you get a god to have a secret agenda. You're going to be able to use your power as well as other people's powers in the game to manipulate things in your favor, where you're going to be trying to use your influence and strategy to ensure at the end that you end up in the best situation. You can see I'm backing at the $65 level now. This is the biggest complaint here, that $65 for the basic is more than what I think a lot of us were expecting. This is a big price point, especially before shipping. And I hate this nickel and diming with miniatures be happening on a lot of these games, but I have heard great things. I have not watched gameplay yet of this, and so I will have more to say on that during the complete video that's dedicated to this. But I think from what I've heard is that it seems to be very good at varying player counts. And with a game like this, that's very unique, that it plays well with 3 as well as it plays with 7. And there aren't many games like that, and I like the adaptability because then I can pull it out, and I don't think the bar is that high in terms of explanation, but I think it becomes in a game that evolves with strategic deduction and meta play. I think the big question though is whether or not it's going to be worth it at retail, because $65, I can't see it holding up at $65 at retail. Do you go for the higher pledge level with the knowledge you're going to pay more to not necessarily get more of what you want, but more exclusivity? Because if you don't go at that level, it's going to be cheaper to wait, and the fear of missing out in the first place of not having the hotness immediately in your hand when everybody else does. But overall, I really like this game. I've not gone with a reskin or a retheme of Pantheon. They have made up their own. I'm not sure the exclusives are really worth it at this point. I want to see what else comes out. They've said there's only one stretch goal. It's $1 million. I think it's an app or something with Quackalope that they're going to do in terms of the background. I think I'll have more opinion on whether or not you should wait until retail or pick it up during the Kickstarter when I do the dedicated video after I've seen more of the actual gameplay. And I can recommend either yes or no at that point. Look, first up, if you've seen my other video, we're going to talk about Frostpunk, the board game. If you know anything about it, it's a video game translated into the board game. The IP is well known. They've drawn in a lot of money. They're over 12,000 backers. They got almost 1.7 million US dollars raised. It's a solo game masquerading as a multiplayer co-op experience. It's got a lot of upkeep. The design looks great. The art looks great. I'm sure it's going to be a well-reviewed game, but I would pass on it personally. There's too much going on for a lot of people to be willing to play as a group. This is not going to be a short, even a mid-length 4 to 5 player game. The playthrough on there is about 4.5, 5 hours when they do it. You've got many people making decisions all at the same time. You've got the quarterbacking issue. You've got the alpha gamer issue. Just like I said, a ton of upkeep with the cards and the 9 different phases. So for me, I think this game is going to look great on the table. I think it's going to look great on your shelf, but I don't think it's going to hit your table that often. And so for that reason, I've made a whole separate video on this. I'll link it in the comments below. This is the reason I would pass on it, and it's the fear of missing out. I don't think that the added miniatures that they're throwing in now are anything worthwhile from that standpoint. I don't think it's necessary. They've got about a couple expansions. They just threw a poster on. So I just, for all those reasons, I don't see it, especially hitting my table. Co-op and the Euro blend are not your thing, mostly as a solo or 1 to 2 player game. I mean, this is probably an easy pass. But clearly, 12,000 people are getting it. So I wonder what the retail value when it hits the street is actually going to look like. What is it going to look like at a retail level, but also how many of those 12,000 are going to hit the streets early, and will it hold its value? I don't know, because this is such a niche game. 12,000 is an awful lot. I could see a lot of turnover this within the first 6 months of when it actually gets received by backers. So buyer beware in that sense. But is it going to be a well-reviewed game? Yeah, it already is. I mean, you've already got people testing it out online, so I don't think that's in question. But it's got, what, like 9 days left right now? So there you go. You can check it out. I'll link it in the video below. Speaking of that, going on to the next one here. Cartographers, the standalone expansion of the flip and write or the roll and write genre from the guy who did Role Player. This game is really well received at retail. You can pick it up for like 20 bucks on Amazon with Prime, depending on the week. It's raised $300,000. You've got a standalone game here that adds more of what made the first game good. So I don't think you're going to be disappointed if you like the first game. They actually throw in a couple additional maps, and I think that's where the price point is. The question mark is, do you really need all 3 of these additional maps that they're offering right here? And frankly speaking, I don't really know. I haven't played this game a lot. It's got great feedback from the people that like these types of games, but it's also got good feedback from the people that do not like these games typically with the roll and writes. So that is something that you should be aware of if you're looking for a game that's broader appeal, to be able to get to the table easily, that plays at a variety of player counts. You should know that. I've heard that the skills packs, if anything, if you're going to get these little skills and mini expansions, those are the things to get because they offer a lot of more variability than even the base game provides. But do I need colored pencils? Do I need a play mat? Do I need some random promos? No, I really don't. So I think if you're going to get this, I think you should either pick it up at retail, late back it after you pick up the original at retail, or you get just the new one. I don't think you need to spend whatever it is, $80 or something for everything. 90 for everything. I mean, that is a ton of money. That's like getting your, whatever the Kickstarter was for 6 copies of Railroad Ink. You don't need it. Unless you've burned through the whole book already twice. I think one or the other is perfectly suitable for this campaign. This campaign, again, Keith does a great product. You know you're getting a quality product regardless. You know it's going to retail. I've just seen that some of the map packs might not be going to retail, or some of the skills expansions might not be easily available. So just buyer beware there. It's got 3 days left at the time of doing this. Probably just under 48 hours by the time this gets posted. So I would say if you're interested, pick it up at retail. I have a whole video on why you should consider late backing instead of just backing during campaigns often. I'll link that below as well. It's something that you should be aware of and something you should be doing more often if you're not doing it already. Another one from a couple weeks ago, Dungeon Drop. You have Dropped Too Deep and Tavern Tales. So you have 2 standalone expansions that sort of go with the original game of basically all you do is you drop your cubes on the table and then you make matches based off of triangles and shapes between certain colored cubes. So it's nothing super strategic depth-wise, infinite almost in replayability in the sense that the cubes are never going to be dropped twice in a row the same way. But whether or not it's for you, I think it's pretty divisive. Again, this is a game where the individual price isn't that bad, $29 for all the stretch goals that you're going to get. But if you look at the price point, $16, $29 for both, $44 for all the extra add-on stuff, and then $49 for a little bit of everything, $69 for absolutely everything. You need to be aware of what this game is. This game is going to be random. It's going to be take that. It's going to be situational. And if that is not a game for you, you avoid it. I don't think it's something that you pick up now unless they have a lot of exclusives. And as far as I can tell, it looks like there's a limited promo pack. You've got a couple of other things limited, nothing that really screams, I need this. And all of these little things are tacking on extra bucks. So it's a lot of money if you're getting all of these little extras. And I've seen initially when the Kickstarter first delivered to people from the first campaign, people were selling it for more. However, I've seen people selling it for less now. And so it's not something I think is going to hold up long-term value if you're looking to flip it. So if you're a flipper, I would stay away from this game unless you're flipping it just the second it comes out, and that's your plan. Otherwise, if you have questions about it, again, late back this. Or get one. This is one, I don't think you need to be a completionist. I think one of these with a couple small add-ons is going to be more than enough. And then I think you'll be fine. And then if I'm sure you can find somebody else that's going to flip you the rest. So it's not something I would spend probably $70 plus shipping on at this point when you can get a good trial of it for probably $20 now at retail. So take that as you will. Next up, we got a couple games that I am personally backing right now. We have the expansion to Gatefall. So basically Chapter 2 by Jack Dyer. He's putting out a great product. These miniatures are massive. This 100 millimeters, this picture does not do them justice. This expansion is called Lost in the Northwoods. This is your version of a little bit of a more stepped up, sideways, unmatched, if you will. And the first one is pretty well received already. It's got the seal of approval by the Dice Tower. You're getting a free guy just like that. He's putting stuff out there that is original, that's innovative. And for me, I want to reward that because I like this type of game. Now, my biggest problem is, again, it's mainly a 2-player game. Now, they throw an expansion down here with the boards that you can open it up to like a 3-player game, but I don't look at it as a 3-player game like this. 3-player games like this just don't tend to work because it ends up 2 people ganging up on another one. So it just doesn't really work from that side of things for me. Now, I like the fact that they're also offering additional add-ons, additional characters. I thought some of the characters from the first Kickstarter were a little bland and a little similar, so I like that they're really experimenting with some of the powers. The artwork is amazing, but again, artwork doesn't get me, gameplay does. And so that's why this game is actually decently well thought of right now. And I agree that best at two. It's a two-player game. Let's just clear that up. So you've got different characters. They've got some more manipulation of the board. It's not just a slog like I think the first chapter is. So I think this chapter really expands, and this is what Jack Dyer has actually said, is that the game and the purpose of these expansions is the base game is going to be your intro. Very simple, very straightforward. Each successive expansion is going to add something different. It's going to add a layer of depth and nuance. And that, if you look at the Dice Tower with Tom Vasel's critique, was the main thing, was that this is really easy to get to the table because of how straightforward it is, and that's a blessing and a curse. And he actually makes this comment that he wishes there was some more depth. Well, Jack has already said this game is going to have more expansions, more follow-up. And so this is one of several that he has planned. So if you're interested at all, this is a good price point to get in. Now the problem is it requires the base game. I wish almost, I hate saying this, I wish there was a little bit more so you could just get this standalone. I usually feel the opposite way, like with Aeon's End and things like that, where you're buying the same thing repetitively. But this, as I feel like this is a slightly more step up, that's going to attract a lot more of that strategic tactical crowd, would be a nice way of introducing them as a standalone. So I guess that would be my only criticism right now. The price point is great. What you get for that $39 is great. I have the set from the first expansion with the Kickstarter exclusives all for $39. It was great. So if it's a game for you, check it out. If you like Unmatched, if you like that sort of thing, that dueling game, this is one that you should be looking at. Next up, we have Crash Octopus. Again, if you know anything about my channel, if you've watched any of my other videos, I love the indie Japanese games that are done well. And Itten is the publisher that has done really well in this sense. They are almost at 100,000, which is great, and 2,000 backers for one of these indie Japanese games, and they're becoming less indie by their notoriety in that sense. This is a classic dexterity with a twist. Basically, you are using your little flag to flick your little guy all around what is perceived as the ocean in the picture, and you are trying to hit your little guy into objects to pick up, to put on your boat that you have to balance, and that you have to avoid the octopus or other players knocking off. It's different. It is not your typical game, but it's 20 minutes. It's a dexterity game, 2 to 4 players. It's easy to hit the table. It's probably one of the easiest games that would be to hit the table. The hardest thing is the setup. And so you're getting an octopus, and it's a clever design. It's not going to be probably widely available in the US. They offer a couple of their other games as additional add-ons, like Moonbase, which is another super abstract game that has received pretty good reviews. It's something that if you want it, you're gonna have to get it now. These games do not come to wide availability in retail. They don't come in the secondhand market a lot. So if you want it, it's going to be a Kickstarter or nothing. Oftentimes these Japanese games and creators don't even do pledge managers, and I don't think they're actually doing a pledge manager here. So if you don't back during the campaign, it's gonna be missed unless you can sort of wiggle your way in. But they have reached all of their stretch goals. They have a pirate ship going on here. So if you want little meeples that are awesome looking, this is what this game is going to provide you. Excited to see what this one holds and to see if my kids can actually handle this or what's going to happen. But I think it's worth checking out. And if you're interested, as you can see, I'm considering getting Moonbase as well because I am a big abstract player. But that's a whole nother issue. Next up for returning games to this list, 35 hours to go at this point, $240,000. This is Cascadia. This is by the same guys that brought you Calico. Calico, which is a big hit right now at retail. You're getting it for the same price that the Kickstarter backers got. So if there's one criticism I'll get, Calico at retail from these guys at Flat Out Games, you can get it for the same price that the Kickstarter backers bought it for during the campaign. And I think shipping is probably about the same, maybe even slightly less. So that would be the only concern that I would have. But they don't really offer any exclusives. So it's not like you are going to be drastically missing out if you do not back it now. They've been offering it as tabletop simulator online the whole campaign. They've offered it even as an HTML, I think. So you can see the product so that, again, there's no backer's remorse in that sense. There's enough playthroughs by all the usual guys They've got all their stretch goals here. They're at 240. I think they've hit it all. The art is beautiful. The gameplay is beautiful. It's set collection. It's matching. It's a little bit of variability. I like it. I have nothing like it. This theme appeals more to me than Calico does. It's a little different than Calico. It's got a little more variability. To me, I've heard people compare that have played online that prefer Calico, but for me, it's a no-brainer, and I would much prefer this with the animal theme. I think it's going to be easier for me to get to the table, especially with the kids and the wife. I think you could go either way. I think you could pick it up at retail and not miss out on hardly anything. I think otherwise, if you like the company, back the company and get it now. I did a whole separate video on this, but I have not touched on this one in the rundown. All of my views were from looking at the pre-campaign page for Twisted Fables. I guess I'm too small for them to be interested in highlighting me. They've been highlighting different videos from all the guys that are basically already on the same page. I am someone that's not getting a pre-copy, that's not having experience with it, and I'm saying this looks like a great game. If you like deck building, if you like one-on-one, frankly speaking, this is the next level up, and I am a huge deck building fan. If you are a deck building fan, they do a really good job of incorporating this. They take heroines from your classic Disney-esque stories from the West, but also from the East. They make them battlers, and then you are doing one-on-one or two-on-two battles, buying, upgrading your deck, moving. You are not only able to move towards each other like the 2D arcade fighters, but unlike things like BattleCon, you are actually able to move past each other. The core pledge is okay. I guess I'm going for the deluxe pledge right now. I don't really like the miniatures. I think the standees are fine, but with the value you're getting with the neoprene mat and both expansions, they say that the MSRP for all of this is 150 bucks. You're getting it for 75 plus shipping. So I think this would be very easy to flip. I think this would hold its retail value without question, especially if it's even only 3/4 of what they're projecting the 150 to be when you pick it all up, even with free shipping. You're paying 75 plus shipping. You're probably looking at making at least $30 if you don't like the game and everything that goes with it. Each expansion comes with 2 additional heroines. It's looking great. For me, this is going to be harder to hit the table again because it's a 2-player only. They talk about 2 versus 2, but realistically, exception rather than the rule in that sense. I think a playmat's going to look really nice with this. I think the standees are more than enough. But if you want the miniatures, the upgraded version is the only way to get it. So you can always sell them to someone who bought this at retail, and I think you would be able to easily make your money back and more with this. So if this at all interests you, like it does me, back it. Back it now. I'm surprised. And I think the price point has scared off a little bit of people from that side of things. And plus, honestly, these games are very niche. These 2-player, one-on-one battlers are niche. Not everyone's going to like them. This has a little bit more variability because you're buying your cards to put in your deck, and the other problem with that is you're shuffling the deck. And so if you're not getting what you want, you may lose because of that. And a lot of people who like Yomi, who like BattleCon, who like Sakura Arms, there isn't as much randomness in that sense. So this introduces that, but it also introduces a completely different way to play every time, and I like that as well. I like the BattleCon essence where you know your deck, you are battling sometimes not only the character, but the person, trying to figure out what they're going to do so you can bluff and do accordingly based on that. This is a little different. You can characterize your deck many different ways based on what the other person is doing with their deck. So I like that variability, and for me, it's an auto back. I'm gonna back it until the end. Now this is a new one to the list. This just launched yesterday, the day before I'm recording this. Pit Fighter Blood on the Sands. This is a fully 3D printable game. Now it was on the top of the hotness yesterday, and I had to check it out because, I mean, as all things on the hotness, you gotta look at them at least if you're a Kickstarter junkie like me. Fast-paced miniature game. They're giving you all of the STLs. They've raised $36,000, which I'm a little confused by because you've got almost 1,200 people backing this. Not that it looks like a bad product. All I see, this is basically all I see about the gameplay on this page, is they lay out a card, and then the rest of the page is almost talking about the models themselves, painting, oh, here are all the monsters, here are all the things, you know, here's more guys. But I mean, they talk about other campaigns that are supporting them and other miniature stuff, but I see very little on the gameplay on this. So I guess that what I'm getting out of this is a gameplay second, miniatures first. And if you are willing to take the risk with that, I mean, the pledge point is, you know, 25 bucks for the early backer all in with the files, and then with the actual printed, it's 30 bucks. So I mean, the price point isn't bad. But I look at that as you're getting an unproven one-on-one when you have these other alternatives that are already out there that are great or that look great. And so you're taking the risk just to get possibly okay miniatures or kind of good miniatures. For me, I'm not willing to take that risk. That $30 gets me another expansion. It pays for 2 shippings. So for that price, I'm not willing to take a risk on an unproven commodity like this. Another one I've previously checked out, Project L Finesse, the standalone expansion to the previous Project L, which just got to backers within the last couple months. This was a pass for me. I think it's going to hold up. I think it's a solid engine building, tile matching game. It's Tetris, the individual shape board game, if you will. I think it plays well and scales well with people, but I just don't see it hitting the table over a lot of other games that are similar engine building. Ambassador Pack, I believe is what they call it, and then the Ghost piece I think was exclusive previously. So if you want that sort of stuff, you almost have to go in for it, because I have seen this gone for higher at retail. But I guess it's a good sign though too, is because I don't see a lot at retail. It might hold its value. Again, this is one I'd probably late pledge. Try and pick up the base game for it, because the base game for it might be all you need with the new expansion. The new expansion adds a few things like being able to buy tokens and a few other things like that. Don't get me wrong here, it's a quality game. They have done a very good job with this. It's just, for me, is it going to beat something else out? And right now, with the stuff I play with, the group I play with, my family that I play with, no, it's probably not. So mainly for that reason, it's a pass. Now, next up, we have one from the guys of Shut Up and Sit Down. These guys are hilarious. Unfortunately, as much as I find them hilarious, our game tastes are not very similar. It's important in this hobby to recognize quality versus your own tastes. Just because I don't like it, I recognize a quality game. This is a party game. This is their bread and butter. Know that you're going to be getting something that's relatively entertaining. They don't put their name on hardly anything. If you like this sort of party game, this is more of a meta game. As you see people do things or do certain actions. And the nice thing about this is a good pledge point. This is 20 euros. You're getting everything you need as a standalone expansion to this. You know it's going to be interesting. You know it's going to be creative. These guys are that. Like this sort of party game, this is probably something good if you have a group that meets often with the meta that evolves within the regular games. This is even one step beyond that. They really focus on quality. And whether it's a video, written review, it's a written roundup, whatever it is, level of dedication is going to go into a game like this. Me, I'm not a big party game. We don't have reached those upper +5s more or very often, even before the pandemic. So for me, it's a pass. And I know that my taste differ than Shut Up and Sit Down, so it's a pass for me from that side of things. But I think just by them willing to put their name on it, you're going to get your money's worth. So here we have Cactus Town from Second Gate Games. This is an action programming game where you are in the Old West. You are one of these little miniature guys in the Old West, a cowboy, a sheriff, a bad guy. Basically what you're doing in this game is that you are laying down a 5x5 grid of buildings in the perceived town in the Old West, and you are going around trying to collect certain things, trying to outwit and outplay other players with action programming. So you don't know what other people are doing on each successful turn. Now you can see that they've already put 3 expansions in here. They've got 2 different pledge levels. They've got the pledge level with miniatures and the pledge level without miniatures. But the interesting thing of this is, if you look at the stretch goals, they have a lot of Kickstarter exclusives. And so if you're going to get this game, this is the one that you're going to want to get on Kickstarter, because a lot of this is not going to be available at retail. You can feel how you feel about Kickstarter exclusives, but if it interests you at all, you're better off on Kickstarter. There's plenty of videos. Take a look at the videos. For me, it's a pass. I'm not a big fan of action programming. I never have been. It's never been something I'm super excited about. Again, I got burned on the one other campaign with Monsterlands where I got the wood tokens, the extra price. I ended up not liking the game as much as I thought. And so I didn't recoup my costs as much as I really, and it kind of burned me. And so for wooden tokens, for things like this that are upgraded, especially with the miniatures, I mean, it's not a horrible price, all things considered. I think it's what, like 50 euros. But that deluxe edition does nothing for me. Wooden does nothing for me at this point. Miniatures do nothing for me at this point. You're getting all the other exclusives in terms of the gameplay. So that's an easy pass. I would say if you're going to get anything, this is definitely a get at the regular level, not wait for retail, because you're going to miss out on the Kickstarter exclusive stuff. This is one that I haven't featured, but as I mentioned earlier, I really do like the 2-player abstract game. So on each side, you each get your own color guys, and on your guys, they all have numbers. And so it's the Stratego in the sense that you've got your numbers facing you so you can see them, but your opponent can't see them. The higher number beats the lower number, but then it cycles back around so that the 1 beats the 5. So there are 1 through 5, and you can see on this picture right here, there's 2 of everything. And so you can stack them up any way you want. You move them every way but backwards. And so you are trying to get a stack of 5 on the other side of the board. And you're capturing and revealing the numbers whenever you put your piece on the other person's piece. Now, I think this is interesting. It's a low luck game. It's memory training. Like I said, it's an abstract. It's not a perfect information game, but it's in that realm of things. So it's very much more tactical, and you're having to adapt and try and remember what number is where. So I think it's a really interesting take. I'm kind of split on it. I don't know, because I think this is one I would have to physically try beforehand. There's enough gameplay videos out there, but if you're like me, sometimes you want to experience this. For this to get to the table, it would have to beat things from the gift series for me, like Zerts, like Yinch, Tak, and I can't see it necessarily beating those right now. So $34 for that before shipping is an okay price in my mind, but I also can't see it necessarily being that cost at retail. So it's got all the good reviews, it's got all these previews by everybody, so you know what you're getting. I'm just not sure it's going to hit the table in front of everything else. And so for me, it might be a try before I buy, and it might be at retail just for that reason. Going to cover just 1 or 2 more here. We have Windward, which is the expansion of the big box. This is a game that was previously put out by Eldorado Games. They have made several other games that are very high quality. The original Windward, their most recent, which I'm still deciding whether or not to late back, The Age of Atlantis, which has taken a spin on the Euro mechanics with the area control. That is actually drawn in someone like me who's not interested in either of those things originally. Then you also have the Island of El Dorado. The common theme of all of these games is they put out a very beautiful product. Now, I think a couple of the concerns have been, especially with the Island of El Dorado, was I think it was more of a roll and move that they got criticized for at that point, which if you knew what you were getting, it was fine. But I think a lot of people, again, don't pay close enough to what the game actually is and get sucked in by all of the other cosmetics and art, and they don't actually watch a gameplay video or read the rule book at this point, which is something you have to do with how much is out there and how much money these things cost. With this game, you are a ship. You are trying to go out and basically, I believe, capture monsters on this planet, get loot, get plunder, trying to navigate the wind as you go along, and this is the expansion to this. Again, it is definitely unique, and this is a game that stands out from the crowd in that sense. And so I think that they're doing a good job at marketing themselves as someone who is not a one-note sort of company. And for me personally, it never did anything because I am not a big pick up and deliver sort of person. But in terms of the gameplay, and I think it's worth watching, and obviously it's doing pretty well. As you can see, it's already over $200,000. It's only got 5 days left at this point. But if the base game hadn't been good, you wouldn't see an expansion / big box doing this well. So I view this as a success. And next up is For Sale with 2 expansions, the Autorama and the Advisors expansion. For Sale is a classic game. This is a game for the people that love it. You are an auction game. You are buying and selling cars. They're adding new mechanics here. And this is a game that has been clamored for expansions for a long time. Now, again, always the concern is whether or not it's picking up but it's really reasonably priced. One expansion is $9, another is $29, so you're not looking at a huge cost. It's just whether or not Eagle Games will put it out at retail for a lower cost. Again, I'm not a huge auction person, so this has never been on my radar, but I know this game is very well thought of. It's lasted the test of time, which oftentimes is hard to do, especially with the ever-changing hotness of the board game world. So something to be on your radar if you were a fan of the original. Speaking of expansions, we also have Fantastic Factories, the expansion of Manufactions. This, again, it's at $250,000, which is a dice placement game, and I think those are always unique. You don't find them a lot like you do with a lot of other worker placement games. Again, putting out 2 expansions here with this Kickstarter campaign. $40 for both expansions with 2 promo packs. Honestly, that's probably pretty good value, and you're probably not going to beat that at retail, especially with the promo packs. This is a proven game that involves combining engine building, dice placement, 1 to 5 players. It's very easy to get to the table. Basically, this is adding more of a good thing. And so if this game intrigued you at all at baseline, probably worth picking up in the Kickstarter, just given the amount of content you're getting for $40. Shipping is only $5. So Overall, $45 for all the stuff that you're getting at just the expansion level, if you have the base game already, is probably a really good deal. You can probably find a copy of this on the secondary market as well. And so if this is intriguing to you at all, there's a reason this has got $250,000 for a reprint with a more expansion. So it's something to keep on your radar. Again, it's not something for me personally, but I think it's something worth noting because you're seeing a lot more of this, as with a couple of these that I've already highlighted, that are expansions for good quality games. And you put a good quality game out, you put a good expansion out, people are going to buy it, and this is proof of that again. Okay, so that is it for the Kickstarter roundup right now. Like I said, I'm going to have multiple of these games that I have mentioned, including the 3 big ones that launched today, as well as the one big one from last week, Veiled Fate, that will be dedicated videos, hopefully in the next 1 to 2 weeks-ish. And so keep an eye on for that. I'm going to be doing it. Is it worth it for you to pick it up? Is it worth it in general? As someone like myself, as a fellow backer who has no previous knowledge of the games on Kickstarter, who's not getting a review copy, who's not getting paid anything, who's having to spend it out of his own money, am I going to be backing it? Do I think you should back it? What should you be aware of? Should you back it if you like this, or should you just avoid it if you don't like this? Please like, please subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're excited about. Give me some engagement. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Stay classy.